Hey guys, Jack and welcome back. And with the Champions League group stages beginning this evening, I thought I'd do a predictions video of the clubs I think are going to go through and the clubs I don't think are going to go through. I was going to predict the placings, but quite frankly, I would be useless at that because if you see my prediction video for the Premier League, you know I'm not the most correct. So let's just get into it. First up, we have Bayern Munich, Man United, FC Copenhagen, and Galatasaray. It's a very strong group in terms of the kind of clubs that they have. Some of the biggest clubs in their respective nations. Bayern Munich, I think, are obvious favourites for this team. While Thomas Tuchel hasn't been necessarily pleased and he hasn't had the greatest start this season, they're still, I think they're the first or second in the Bundesliga, and they still have a strong squad, the likes of Kimmich, Goretzka, Alphonso Davies, De Ligt, Upamecano, Thomas Muller. Like they have a lot, and Jamal Musiala, of course. FC Copenhagen, I don't know too much about, but they're obviously one of Denmark's best teams. And Galatasaray have kind of built this huge kind of star-studded team, the likes of Mertens, Ndombele, Zaha, Icardi. Like they have a very strong side, and I think they're going to be kind of the dark horses here. And I think they're going to be contending for second place with Manchester United, who've had a really difficult start to the season. We've seen seen after their loss against Brighton and all the off-field issues surrounding them that I've talked in previous videos. With this group, it's hard to imagine, like Bayern and Man United not going through. But I can see Galatasaray definitely causing issues here. So while I'm going with Bayern and Man United to go through, I think Galatasaray could spoil the party for the Mancunians. Group B is very kind of Europa League vibes. Sevilla, Arsenal, PSV, and Lens. Sevilla and Lens have had really difficult starts to the season, and like Sevilla are probably relieved now that Sergio Ramos has signed for them because they've been lacking defensive depth, and I think they picked up their first win at the weekend. Lens, on the other hand, I don't think they haven't won in Ligue 1 this season, and now going into the Champions League, they still haven't recovered their team. I mean, Fofana, who was their star player last season, has gone to Saudi Arabia, and they haven't found anyone to pick up. While they have Wahi, I think, who is still subject under investigation for I think allegations against his partner. I just don't think it's going to be possible for him. I think it's going to be between Arsenal and PSV for me. Arsenal, who have started the season quite well, they haven't looked the kind of exciting best that they were last season. But from my discussions with people, that Arteta seems to be looking to just ease expectations and ease the amount of pressure that he's putting on his side. Not expect them to go and completely blow out teams. He wants them to be a bit more controlled. And when you have Champions League and Premier League to contend with, you want to be able to do that. I still think the quality of their side, despite some of the injuries that they've had, I think they're going to top the group. PSV aren't pushovers though. I watched them against PSV, against Rangers, and they were unbelievable. Noah Lang on the wing just was tearing apart Rangers backline. I mean, Tavernier just couldn't control them at all. Serginho Dest overlapping on the left, and we saw the likes of De Jong, who was a menace in the box. The midfield was really good, even though they lost Sangare. But we're going to be seeing Ricardo Pepi and Malik Tillman. Like that's a lot of talent. And it's hard to imagine. I think it's going to be between Arsenal and PSV, but I can't decide who would I top the group, to be honest. I really like the look of Group C. We see Napoli, Real Madrid, Braga, and Union Berlin. And the German side are playing in the first ever Champions League campaign, and it's really exciting to see a Berlin side in the Champions League. I mean, Hertha has been probably the closest competitor, but they've never really impressed, to be honest. I think they've only been in the Champions League once. Braga have done really well in Portugal, and I think this is one of the first forays in the Champions League in a long time, as far as I'm aware. And they have a lot of talent, the likes of the Iorta brothers. Like they have a lot of talent, but I don't think they're gonna have enough in this group, especially when you have Napoli and Real Madrid. Napoli, to begin with, haven't started their Serie A campaign really well. Kvaratskhelia has been triple marked out of games. If you watch any of the fixtures, like he's definitely struggled to get into games. And we saw the likes of Victor Osimhen. He's also finding it difficult. It's really interesting to see because they've kept a few of their talented players, but obviously losing a few over the summer isn't ideal. But I think with the Champions League, and obviously they're without Spalletti, it's going to be challenging for them. But you just have to see what Naples is like in Champions League nights. They just seem to turn it on. Real Madrid, on the other hand, I think it could be a very comfortable group stage for them. While Napoli will challenge them, I think we've seen the likes of Bellingham just completely take control. Vinicius Jr., Rodrigo, like they have a lot of talent going forward, and with the midfield as well, Camavinga, Chouameni, and Valverde, and then the likes of Modric and Kroos coming on. Like there's not, I can only see them going ahead, and then personally, I love to see Union get into the knockouts, but I think it's going to be Napoli. Group D, some people would say is a bit weaker, but I think it's going to be really competitive. I mean, Benfica, our league champions. Inter have been excellent so far at the start of the Serie A campaign. I mean, it's like if you watch the match against AC Milan, like they've like beaten them 5-1. They were comfortable winners. Mkhitaryan, Shalnolu, like they just looked incredible, and obviously Lautaro Martinez, and Thuram, they're just excellent. Salzburg are always a difficult tie despite being a very young side, and Real Sociedad, who have had a patchy start to the season. Takafusa Kubo has looked great since he signed for them, but Oyarzabal hasn't really been in good form since he picked up an injury last season. And obviously Andre Silva needs to come into play. Sorloth has been good coming off the bench, but they definitely need to pick up. They definitely need to be scoring a few more goals. And for me, anyway, seeing this team, I'm expecting Inter to top the group and then Benfica to follow suit. But I think it will be a very competitive group. Another interesting group with Feyenoord, Atletico Madrid, Lazio, and Celtic. It's a very strong, it's kind of second, even though they're second tier teams in their league, well, except for Celtic, of course, and Feyenoord. I think it's gonna be a difficult task. I mean, Atletico have started the season relatively well. Obviously, the loss against Valencia at the weekend, but I don't see them, dropping performances, in the Champions League with the likes of Griezmann. Morata seems to be coming into form. They have a lot of talent in that squad, and Lazio, they haven't started the greatest, but I do expect them to be difficult in this tie, especially under Maurizio Sarri. Feyenoord, on the other hand, as well, they've lost a lot of talent. Szymanski, who was probably their biggest outlet last season, he didn't return. And I think they're going to miss his talent. Celtic as well, like they've had a lot of injuries to start the season. While they haven't been the best in the SPFL, they just lost the likes of Cameron Carter-Vickers and just general talent gap that they have in comparison to the rest of the teams. For me, it's going to be a toss-up between Atletico and Lazio, and I think Feyenoord could, challenge, but I'm not 100% sure. Like, I'm not too familiar with their squad, and I just think the Spanish and the Italian side will be the ones to go through to the knockout stages. Talk about a group of death for Newcastle, and seeing the likes of AC Milan, Dortmund, and Paris Saint-Germain. PSG have had their worst start to a Ligue 1 campaign since the Qatari ownership came in, and they recently lost 3-2 to Nice, courtesy of Muffy, who was really good on the day. Luis Enrique has them playing very possession-based football, but they have struggled to implement it because they don't really have the star quality that they used to. And I think they're still trying to bed in, but they just have a lot of young players. I mean, Verratti was the latest kind of veteran to leave for Qatar, and they're going to struggle. And I think with Dortmund, who've also had not a difficult start to the season in terms of results, their performances have been, less than they definitely need to rely on the veterans such as Hummels and Royce to kind of bring the young squad ahead. They have a lot of talent, but I don't know how they're going to fare. I mean, AC Milan have a lot of talent. They invested brilliantly during the summer, courtesy of a Sandro Tonali transfer to Newcastle. I mean, Pulisic has been immense for them. Loftus-Cheek, Rafael Leao has looked good, but they've still looked a bit patchy defensively. Calabria is solid. Marcus Thiaw, I think that's how you pronounce it, who was formerly a Schalke. Simon Kjaer, and Theo Hernandez. It's a good backline, but it can be exposed, especially when Theo advances up the midfield. And then Newcastle, who will be in their first foray in the Champions League since probably the 90s, I believe, or 2000. Like, it's going to be huge, especially for Eddie Howe, who hasn't managed in Europe before. And during the weekend, over their win against Brentford, they've rested a lot of key players. Bruno Guimaraes, I think, was rested. Sandro Tonali was rested, and Alexander Isak was rested. And I think they're definitely going to be going go for this. And it's very, even though Newcastle would be on paper the weakest side and they have the less experience, it's hard to pick who we're going to go ahead. I think with just the quality of the teams, I see Milan going ahead, going through as one of the two, and I have a toss up between Paris and PSG and Newcastle, but because of just the sheer girth of quality and the talent that they have, I'm going to have to go with PSG. I think it's going to be Milan and PSG. I think this is just going to be the standings at the end of the group stage. Man City are playing Leipzig again, and they have a very easy group again. There's no controversy. I'm not alleging anything. Man City have again started the season really well. I think 5 out of 5 games, they look really comfortable, and they have a relatively easy group in comparison to their rivals. Leipzig have started their Bundesliga campaign very well, despite losing the likes of Nkunku, Szoboszlai. They have lost a lot of very strong talent, and they've performed really well in the Bundesliga so far. And I think they will compete with Man City, but ultimately I do see Man City and Leipzig going ahead. I feel sorry for Red Star Belgrade and Young Boys. I think it's just a battle for whoever tries to get the most points to get into the Europa League. And the final group is Barcelona, Porto, Shakhtar Donetsk, and Royal Antwerp. Antwerp, I think, are in their first European campaign, Champions League campaigns in like 65 years or something like that. And Shakhtar Donetsk are a perennial Champions League side, and despite the huge war still ongoing in the country and in Russia, it's incredible seeing them go through. Well, I think their matches are going to be played in Poland, and I think their home games are going to be played in Hamburg. They're doing incredibly well. I think it's going to be a difficult task for Barcelona, who on paper would be the obvious favourites, but they have a young squad. They've done really well in the league so far, and they have a lot of talent. It's not going to be a pushover for them though. Porto have been really good in this Champions League for the last couple of years, reaching knockout stages on multiple occasions and always causing issues for the bigger sides. I think Barcelona will go through in this group, and I'm really shaking between Porto and Shakhtar, because Shakhtar, I know Shakhtar lost a lot of players, the likes of Manor Solomon, Mudryk, obviously last January. I don't know what their situation is. Same with Porto. I think just my kind of bias with the Portuguese sides, I think I'm going to have to put Porto ahead. But one thing I want to say about Royal Antwerp, like they're not. I don't think they're going to be pushovers. They've shown in the Jupiter League that they can definitely challenge. And honestly, to be honest, I want to see Toby Alderweireld score another screamer to get them through to like a knockout stage, and Vincent Janssen to be top goal scorer in the group. That's what I want to see. So yeah, that's my quick rundown of the group stages. I think it's going to be a very fun Champions League, and it's obviously the last Champions League campaign before they introduce the Swiss model, and it's going to be very fascinating to see how this final iteration of the Champions League will go before they change it. So let's see how it goes, and I'm looking forward to seeing how these teams fare, and hopefully I'm actually right with my predictions for the first time. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed. If you liked the video, give it a like, subscribe to the channel. Thank you very much for watching. Until next time, take care.